Vision Gran Turismo cars. Let's see what we've got here. Mercedes, quite swoopy. Toyota, Dodge, 2,500 horsepower. Ooh. Mazda, Audi, Bugatti, McLaren. Let's have a closer look at that. But why drive it virtually when the real thing's outside? Yes, I know it looks like a one-off, and right now it is. But this is the McLaren Vision Gran Turismo car made real, and it's going into production. In the past, Gran Turismo's Vision cars have been turned into real-life models. Some have even become drivable one-offs. But until now, they've never gone any further. This is the first ever Vision car you'll be able to buy in reality, not just for £1 million credits in the game. Over £2.7 million. Not this one, because it's in camo, because it's a prototype, so it's actually probably worth more than that. But McLaren is going to build 25 of them. Now here's the weird thing. Right now you know what this car is called, but I don't, because what you're watching here actually happened 6 weeks ago, and as I talk, McLaren hasn't decided on a name for this yet, so it's known by its internal code name, P94. But we don't want you to miss out. So here it is, and yes, I know these look like Gran Turismo screen grabs, but they're actually real images. Without disguise, but with a new name, the Solus GT. So what we need is someone to talk us through it. This is Fred Martindye, Program Manager for this outlandish project. What are the challenges of turning a Vision Gran Turismo car into reality? Because like famously, in the game, it had a line your tummy driving position, but this one hasn't.
It doesn't. So you're right. There's two big changes from that concept that you see in the game. The first one, the driving position. So we chose to leave that kind of Superman style, arms outstretched, head kind of crooked back, in the world of virtual reality. Kind of the feeling that would have created. Yes, I can totally see how that is a sensory overload being in that driving position. But we chose to go with the conventional driving position. There's a reason why all cars are set up like this. You know, driver comfort, I think, is a real key consideration into that. And if you imagine the packaging challenges around getting a driver to lie forward and the length that kind of uses, we've been encroaching into key space that we need for other components.
And the other one is, in the game, the engine is a twin-turbo V8. I never thought that sounded that special in the game, but although it had twin electric motors and 1,100 horsepower in total. But you've done something more interesting. What have you done?
Well, this sounds even more special. So, what we've got in the back of this car is a 5.2 litre naturally aspirated V10.
So which isn't an Audi engine, is it? Because if most people hear 5.2 litre V10, they go, "Oh, the Audi engine," but it's not, is it?
No, it's not. It's not an Audi engine. No, it's a bespoke modified engine for this car specifically.
Yeah.
It will absolutely scream at more than 10,000 RPM. Naturally aspirated for excellent throttle response, and V10 for that again, that sensory overload of full noise when it screams at 10,500 RPM.
Yeah. Really, so I don't think I'm giving any games away when we say that is a race engine in the back of this. It's an LMP.
It's an LMP derived engine. Yeah.
And then gearbox off the back of it is a sequential manual, I guess.
So off the back, 7-speed sequential manual box. Again, bespoke to the car. And what makes the whole unit really special is that it's a stress unit. So all the rear suspension is hung off this bespoke gearbox casing, and it effectively makes up the rear structure of the car.
So what you've basically taken is you've taken a Vision Gran Turismo car and gone, we like the look and design of it, but we can turn it into what most people understand as a relatively conventional racing car.
I suppose it is more conventional when you think about a race car, And we wanted the best overall package to give the optimum customer experience. That incredible driver experience and the noise, as I say, of the V10 screaming behind you at 10,500 RPM. It's going to be like no other.
Let's have a walk down the side, because it is quite a thing to look at. as you go down.
Yeah.
So aero obviously plays a really big role in what we're looking at here.
As it did with the concept, clearly. So we start here with the big splitter and front wing. That's providing a lot of front downforce in itself, and then that guides the air under these full-length tunnels, which go all the way through to the back of the car.
Yeah.
And
so if you
feeds the
crouch down
diffuser
at the
as well.
front, you can see the tunnel
see the
pretty
tunnels all
much
the way.
immediately, going all the way back, can't you?
So underbody air is obviously really efficient. Downforce per drag is really, really good to utilise that area. And as I say, those tunnels feed into a diffuser, full-length tunnels feeding into a massive diffuser at the back of the car here, and obviously all complemented by a fixed rear wing.
So we're talking 1,200 kilos of downforce in total?
Well, we'll exceed that quite comfortably, actually.
Was that what they quoted in the game?
That
or
was
that
the
just like,
that was one of our kind of attribute targets for the car. Having done extensive CFD and wind tunnel testing, I'm fairly confident we'll exceed that quite comfortably.
There's a smile on your face.
Yeah.
This is always encouraging, isn't it? I am quite impressed that you've managed to get the McLaren logo as part of the air cooling and the chimney. So there's a chimney vents, aren't they, for the heat from the exhaust coming out?
Yeah. So obviously the exhaust exit right at the back of the car. But yeah, those aid cooling at that point there.
We're talking about 1,000 kilos.
Less than
1,000
less than
kilos.
1,000 in, considerably less dry. It'll be the lightest McLaren we've ever built outside of F1, and that contributes to it being the fastest McLaren outside of F1 that we've ever built.
I'm not surprised. Right, can we have a look in the car? Can we
let's
open the
do that.
canopy?
Yeah, so I need to explain that this is a prototype system at the moment, but
You can tell because it's wearing funny paint joy. Although I wouldn't be surprised if a customer spec'd it like this. It looks terrific.
it does look good. So pop the latches. I think that should be. So if you grab one side. So this mechanism and how the canopy opens is how the production. So lift up and then slide forwards, fighter jet style.
That is
It's got this
amazing.
full wrap-around polycarbonate screen, gives you maximum visibility.
So that's
when
one
you're,
piece
when you're in the car.
polycarbonate all the way around.
Yeah, that gives really good side and forward visibility.
Yeah.
The only thing that's kind of hindering that, or that you really see, is the tub spar. So that's kind of our halo. It's it's a rollover protection structure that goes straight into the carbon monocoque, the bespoke carbon monocoque here, and that gives the car its safety structure.
Amazing. As a single-seater, central driving position, that whole aspect of it, especially when you look out and you see these sort of sharp edges on the flanks and everything, it looks terrific. So what I think is interesting is that McLaren famously, for your road cars, you have clean steering wheels and then you put your controls elsewhere. Obviously nowhere else to put controls here, so you've done a race steering wheel.
Well, that's it. The steering wheel you see in the car, again, it's a prototype wheel.
Yeah.
We're working on the functionality of that, but yeah, all the controls need to be kind of amalgamated on that wheel. So it will be race inspired with the dash in the middle there, the screen, and the driver is strapped in with these 6-point harnesses.
A moulded seat, I
into
guess.
a moulded seat.
You get a seat fitting.
Exactly, yeah.
And I'm guessing you have to just slide the pedals to fit.
Yeah, so the pedals are are adjustable. They slide forward and back, and so every customer goes through a full kind of seat fit process to get them as comfortable as they possibly can.
Yeah. And I'm intrigued by this because it sort of looks like carbon, but it's not.
Kevlar, yeah.
It's Kevlar, is it? Okay.
Kevlar. So Kevlar headrest and side restraints here in the canopy.
Yeah. So they are either side of your head when it
restraints.
slides back in. And
But so you can feel them and they do the job of restraining the head in the case of a crash, but you can't see them. So they're far enough back that visibility is
unimpeded as you look forward. But I thought that was a neat bit of integration, having your mirror up on there. And I assume that's fed from a camera.
Yeah, so we've got the camera pointing out the back here in the central position, and then the screen is above the driver's eye line there.
What do the other buttons up here do?
So we've got kill switch and fire extinguisher. Plumbed-in fire extinguisher.
Yeah, the one put that far away from the steering wheel so no one presses it by accident. And these couple of air vents down here?
Yeah, so we've got AC.
Sweet.
It would be hot work, I think, if we didn't have that.
But did you ever think about doing it with a second seat?
No, I don't think that ever was a consideration. This is all about the driver. All about that experience.
Right, so some numbers on it. 5.2 V10. What does that develop?
So we're looking at about 840 PS, with ram air even more, so about 870. Downforce we've spoken about, it'll be considerably more than 1,200 kilos. That's 150 miles an hour. This will go much faster, so we're aiming for a VMAX of more than 200. 0 to 100 kilometres an hour in less than 2.8, so it'll be fast.
How fast is it going to go around here?
Well, so yeah, I mean, we should talk about what we've been doing today and what we're aiming to do. This is a validation prototype of the project, of the P94 project. This is first day out the box. So we're working on clutch calibration, gear shifts, you know, just ironing out any issues. It's kind of an extended shakedown while we're here at Anglesey.
Yeah, and this, I guess, is a typical sort of first day out with a prototype.
Yeah.
Can it get itself going? Because I know it's done dyno work, hasn't it?
We've done extensive dyno work, both engine and isolation and engine and gearbox to work on those things as much as possible. But there's nothing like putting it together and actually getting it out on track and testing it. And then that's what this car will go off and do, a full test program.
So it's going to go and do other circuits, I guess. It's not going to stick at Anglesey. You're going to go and take it around.
And then we'll start getting to the kind of the limit performance of the car and, you know, the dynamics of it, and running up the miles, making sure it's durable and usable for the end customer.
But the aim is not that it will ever race, though, is it? It's for go out, try your best, see if you can get close to it.
Yeah, it's a track car. Yeah, so we haven't built it to race regulations. Certain regulations we have chosen to adhere to, so safety regulations from FIA. I think that's important to note, but no, it's not eligible for any race series.
Yeah. It's really rare for us to be allowed in so early in a car's development, so thank you so much for having us for the day today. It's been a really interesting day. Here's a little video diary of what it's been like. Shall we close this up?
Yeah.
It's been eventful. Although extensively tested on dyno, it's not a simple car to run. The race spec V10 has to be preheated, and whenever it's not on track, it's plugged into laptops. So it's now about 9:15 and the track opened at 9 o'clock and the car was sort of meant to go out then, but because it's a prototype and it has never turned a wheel before, there's a few teething issues. Come and have a look. Mind your head. So yeah, as you can see, things are still plugged into the car. It was up on jacks. They've got the wheel hub. They were trying to get the wheels off it and the air gun was going quite heavily. There's a little trickle of water around. People in the cabin. Over here, there's guys on laptops just checking through data. Hopefully it won't be too much longer until it's going out. Driving duties are carried out by Le Mans winner Guy Smith, which gives you an idea of the performance parameters McLaren is looking at. So the little niggles mean there have been about an hour behind schedule now. They had a little electrical problem which meant that the engine wasn't getting the right signals to fire up, but Guy's now in it. They've had the engine running once, engine covers back in, all good to go. So the next stage is push him out of the garage and he literally goes out and does one installation lap just to make sure the car's working. Just listen to that thing, it sounds absolutely wild. Can't believe it. Seeing a prototype move for the first time ever, I mean, we never get to see that. It's absolutely mad. It's a bit of the moment of truth now. Can he actually go and do a lap in it? Did you see that as it left the pit lane? It's all hopping, it's the clutch, it's got an auto clutch in it to bind. But here it is, out doing its very first lap at low speed, obviously. It's quite wild though, seeing a prototype car turn the wheel for the first time, do its first ever lap. Or maybe not do its first ever lap. It stopped on circuit. It's not entirely unexpected. It's literally done half a lap. The car features an automatic clutch to make it simpler to drive, and getting that adjusted was the main aim of the day. Sometimes an adjustment means it doesn't make it out of the pit lane at all. Sometimes the gear changes are too savage, or the engine bay heat overwhelms the alternator. It completes about 4 laps over the whole morning. These issues are all part of running a brand new prototype. During the downtime, I'm able to have a sit in it. Right, that is the best car cockpit I've ever sat in for just the whole wraparound feel. It's like you've got a giant visor, so that whole atmosphere of it feeling like being in a fighter jet is completely there. And the seats will obviously be moulded to each person, but the position you're in, you sit much higher than you do in most Formula race cars. It just feels sublime in here. In the afternoon, a corner is turned. It runs 4-lap stints regularly, and Guy is able to start using the performance. We never heard the V10 at full 10,500 RPM chat, but boy does it sound good anyway, fully reminiscent of old F1 cars. A sneaky stopwatch reveals it lapping in the low 1-minute 20s, nearly 10 seconds a lap faster than the back Mono R I'd driven round here a couple of weeks before. And this was its first ever shakedown. The progress made within a day is genuinely mind-boggling. Yeah, but that's a whole load of stress and you need an entire race team. Would have been much quicker if they'd done it on here.
You're going to hear me wang on quite a lot in this video about this car's styling, about the historical significance of it, about why Ferrari built this car, blah, blah, blah. So it's easy to forget that when you boil it down, what we have here is a mid-engined V12, naturally aspirated, with no hybrid assistance. In many ways, it's an analogue LaFerrari, which is a very enticing proposition indeed. But let's not dwell on that too much, because that is a throttle pedal and that is a quiet country road. Well, it's not going to be quiet for long, is it? Woo! Oh, man! The engine is the 812 Superfast's magnificent naturally aspirated 6.5 litre V12, but uncorked a fraction more with upgraded internals like titanium com rods for 828 brake horsepower. That makes this the most powerful engine Ferrari has ever fitted to a road car. It also revs to a screaming 9,500 RPM, the same red line as the 812 Competizione. In many ways, in its all-carbon construction, in the way that these seats are attached directly to the carbon tub, this car shares DNA with the LaFerrari. What it doesn't share is the LaFerrari's hybrid system, its E-assisted knockout punch. But honestly, 0 to 62 in 2.85 seconds and a 211 mile an hour top speed isn't exactly shabby, is it? Now, the power and performance figures I just mentioned for this car are pretty much identical to those you get on the much cheaper V6 hybrid 296 GTB, but honestly, I couldn't care. I've got twice as many cylinders, I'm not missing any E-motors here, and every time I put my foot down, I get that noise. Let's see if we can get 9.5, come on. Oh, that is, it's just one of the best noises in the world, isn't it? The gearbox is a 7-speed twin-clutch auto. A manual, apparently, would have been a nostalgic step too far. The whole thing weighs 1,485 kilograms dry, just a few kilograms more than a 296 GTB. There's 230 kilograms of downforce at 124 miles an hour, and it features the latest version of Ferrari's side slip control software that lets mere mortals drift like the gods. Yeah, not sure I'm going to be hanging the tail out today on these slightly narrow, slightly moist Belgian back roads, because this car costs 2 million quid. They're only building 599 of them, they're all sold out. This is an actual customer's car, and I prefer my bed without a horse's head in it. The good news is you don't need to be on some sort of hot quali lap to really enjoy driving this car. Yes, it is impossibly low and impossibly wide. It feels massive on the road. When I look in my mirrors, and I love the positioning of the mirrors out there on the wings, by the way, less distance for your eyes to flick between. The mirror is just full of that rear wheel arch. You're always conscious that the rear of the car is wider than the front. And then you get to the seats. There's only one seating position. It's reclined. They want to give you racy vibes in here, but honestly I thought it was going to be racier and noisier and harsher in here. But actually, whack it into wet, sport or race, click this for bumpy road mode, and you could cover big distances in this car. It's also got that little bit of Ferrari magic where it manages to make 800 horsepower feel almost friendly, definitely approachable, like the chassis and the electronics are always on top of whatever monumental power that engine can produce, and then in turn it makes the driver, little old me, feel more confident, like a better driver than he actually is. I genuinely feel I have every confidence that this car isn't going to bite me, it's not going to spit me into that hedge, unless of course I turn everything off and prod it with the stick. Okay, so let's just pick apart this driving experience a little bit more, and we'll start with the steering. Now, Ferraris are famous for having whip-crack fast steering, but also a super light feel to the rack, which I personally happen to like. I know others don't, but this is a little bit different. It's still a very, very fast ratio, and if you breathe on it from off-center, the front end of the car just darts where you want to go. I love it. It feels connected, it feels responsive, it feels exactly how a car that's trying to emulate sports prototypes from the 60s should. But what they've also done is added in a little bit of extra weight, a bit of extra heft, so you get some of that true 60s race car flavour. The brakes, well, they're phenomenal. I'll be honest, I'm not getting anywhere near their limits on this road here. They are there, they do their job fantastically. And then we get to the throttle response as the rain starts beating down on the windscreen, because it's easy to forget when you're driving turbocharged engines all the time just how magical the throttle response on a naturally aspirated engine is. It's right there whenever you want it. And what's fantastic about this engine is from, what, 3,000 RPM all the way to 9,500 RPM, you have this incredible linear rush of acceleration. The sensation is that you've got as much acceleration as you could ever need at all times. It really is very, very special. Now, you might have to be very high up in Ferrari's little black book to be invited to spend 2 million quid on one of these cars, but I'm telling you what, it's not a members only driving experience. It invites you in. Everyone's invited. It wants to have a play. In no way does this car feel hardcore and overly specialist or aloof. It's just right. On the inside, like the 296 GTB, you get a supersized instrument cluster and then touch-sensitive controls for the aircon on the lower part of the dash, and more touchpads on the wheel, which I kept brushing every time we turned into a corner, but I'll forgive on this occasion because this car's purpose is to offer a pure hit of nostalgia. And the gearbox controls, designed to look like a miniature open gate manual, the wraparound windscreen, the reclined seating position and high shoulder line, do just that. Now, funnily enough, I've never raced a Ferrari sports prototype from the 60s, but I'm assured by someone that has that the overall driving position and feeling of enclosure isn't far off. And then we arrived at Spa, one of the world's fastest and most notorious racetracks, especially the original 14-kilometre long street circuit. It was, and still is, a mecca for endurance racing, the scene of countless Ferrari wins, and remains one of the ultimate tests of a driver's nerve and a car's ability. The perfect place, in other words, to take the Daytona SP3 to the ragged edge. Yeah. About that. Unfortunately, and I quote from Ferrari's instructions to me for this event, because of the car's value and the fact that it's a limited edition model, speeds at Spa are limited to 70 kilometers an hour. God, this is frustrating. I'm in one of the world's most exciting cars on one of the world's fastest tracks, and I am unable, I'm not allowed to drive it as the engineers intended. Still, at least I can tell my friends I drove a Ferrari Daytona SP3 through Eau Rouge without lifting. technically true. So why are we here then? You see, Ferrari claims it doesn't do retro. You're not going to see any straight resurrections from it like the new Lamborghini Countach, but it does like to talk about its history quite a lot, which is why it introduced the Icona range, and this is the third model in the Icona range, hence the SP3 name. The first two were the rather silly windscreenless Monza SP1 and SP2, but this pays homage to the sports prototype racers from the 60s. Confusingly, the name isn't a nod to the Sharky front-engine GT from the 60s, aka the 365 GTB4, but a tribute to Ferrari's famous 1-2-3 finish in the 1967 24 Hours of Daytona, where all three cars, a 330P 3/4, 330P4 and a 412P, crossed the line in choreographed unison to rub Ford's nose in it on its home turf. Sweet, sweet revenge for the rout the GT40 had dished out to the Ferraris 6 months earlier at Le Mans. The styling is a melting pot of references from not just one car, but many. Those bulging front wings have a bit of the 512S and 712 Can-Am races about them. The wing mirrors have been moved from the doors to the front wings in classic endurance racer style, while the slotted rear end is an unexpected nod to Pininfarina's 1968 Ferrari 250 P5 concept car. Yeah, they don't make concepts like that anymore, do they? Put all that in a pot, and this is what you end up with. So let's have a little look around this and appreciate some of the details, and we start here with my personal favourite, which is the headlights that have eyelids that retract when you put the main beams on. Now we'll get a cutaway shot of it so you can appreciate it in all its glory, but that is a nod to the pop-up headlights from supercars around in the 70s and 80s. Lovely touch. Now we come down here, the front wheel arch, the way, when you look at the car from the dead front on angle, the way these crest and rise right over the front wheel, that is probably the most obvious nod to the endurance racers from the 60s, and perched atop that arch is the wing mirrors. So they've moved from the door to these front arches. I think it works beautifully actually, looks right, and then you get to the door. Now this is very interesting because the intake for the rear mounted radiator is actually in the top front of the door here, so you have a tunnel running right through the door and into the radiator, and what you end up with is this really clean side profile here, this pinched waist, where you would normally have a gaping hole in most modern supercars. It's actually probably the most distinctive thing about the surface of this car. Now, it does have a removable roof, a carbon fibre removable Targa roof. So I'm going to open up these butterfly doors, give you a look at those. Oh, very nice. And I'm going to need my glamorous assistant for this. Mark, right, we need to figure out how to get this roof off. You might want to speed this bit up and put some Charlie Chaplin music over the top, because this could take a while. There we go. Now, there's nowhere to put it in the front, there's nowhere to put it in the back of the car. So Mark, do you think you can manage it? There we go, lob it in the hire car. And shut your door, please, mate. Good man. Right, now, with the roof off, not only can you see all the mess that I've made inside the cabin today, but also you get to appreciate something else, which is this wrap-around windscreen. So the way it wraps around you, and actually this straight line cutoff of the top of the windscreen, that again is a very distinctive feature that you'll see when we throw in some historic pictures of the racers we're talking about. All right, keep coming down the side of the car, more intakes here. I love this central spine that runs right down the middle of the car, and there is your V12, 6.5 litre V12 on full display for everyone to see it. Now this car actually doesn't have any active aerodynamics, so it's just got a full width spoiler here, but really it's little more than just a lip in the bodywork that lifts the rear end of the car. And then you've got the slats, which initially I wasn't sure about, but now I think they absolutely make the design of the car. And then you've got these two enormous exhaust pipes, and they've lifted them up above the number plate, above the diffuser. And the reason for that is you can just have this much bigger, much deeper twin level diffuser under there, providing all the downforce. The big question is, do I like it? Well, I'll be honest. The first time we saw pictures of this car, yeah, I thought it was too fussy. It didn't grab me initially, but I have to say, and I know it's a bit of a cliche, that when you're here, seeing it in the flesh, spending time with it, I still think it's overstyled. I still think they've tried to cram too many styling elements onto one canvas. But when you're standing next to it, when you're driving around the paddock here at Spa with everyone filming it on their phones and giving you the thumbs up and shouting and hollering, you realise that it's got some presence, this car. It's all drama. Marmite styling and draconian speed limits aside, to even get the opportunity to drive a car this exotic is a sizable privilege. But the thrill for me isn't the price or the rarity, it's the execution. Ferrari's most powerful ever engine, a naturally aspirated V12 unfettered by electricity, placed behind the driver and then surrounded by carbon and peerless electronics that feel totally natural and flatter the clumsy driver behind the wheel. It's about as exciting as it's possible for a car with a number plate to get. Ferrari can't really put a foot wrong at the moment, can it? Yes, admittedly it's about to jump on the SUV bandwagon with the Purosangue SUV, which is going to reveal at the end of this year. Boo, but yeah, we'll reserve judgment on that one until we see it. But in the meantime, it's popping out special projects like this. The 296 GTB, after a bit of a fumble with the SF90, has pretty much perfected the whole hybrid supercar thing, and it's back to its winning ways in F1. It really is a company at the top of its powers. A bit like this car. Oh! Sorry, the speed limit. Naughty boy. The time has come, people, because this, we probably never thought we'd see this day, is the finish, the production car, the Mercedes-AMG 1. And honestly, we first saw this car back in, 2017, and we've been waiting impatiently for it to arrive ever since, because it's the car that answers the ultimate pub question. What would happen if you dropped an F1 powertrain into a road car? And as it turns out, quite a lot of head scratching, because it's taken a little longer to get to this point than perhaps Mercedes or AMG thought. Some delays. We were going to see it in 2020, we were going to see it in 2021, but now we have confirmation that it's going to go into production. It's going to be built in the UK any day now. And first customers are going to get their cars in the second half of 2022. I'm just going to give you some headlines. I've been given an enormous fact sheet on this car, so let me just roll those off. So, back here, we got to start with the engine. That is the big story in this car. Under there, you have 4 electric motors. 4 of them! One of those, 122 horsepower, is just for spinning up that turbo to completely eradicate any turbo lag. Then you got another one, 163 horsepower, that sits on the crank between engine and gearbox, 7-speed automated manual, and then another 2, 163 horsepower each, electric motors on the front axle. So you have an electrically driven front axle, you have a hybrid driven rear axle, you have 4-wheel drive, you have in total 1,063 horsepower, which, you know, in these days of 2,000 horsepower Rimats and Pininfarinas and Lotus Evias isn't actually that much, is it? But I'm quite glad, because the horsepower wars are getting a bit silly, and 1,063 horsepower is plenty to be getting on with. Performance, 0 to 62 miles an hour, 2.9 seconds, 0 to 124 miles an hour in 7 seconds, about a second slower than the Bugatti Chiron, but honestly, I couldn't give a fig. Top speed, 219 miles an hour. What else can I tell you? Weight, yes, so it will weigh dry just under 1,700 kilograms, so about twice as heavy as a Formula One car, but then it has even more power. 11-mile EV-only range from an 800-volt, 8.4 kilowatt-hour battery. But to be honest, that's not really what this car is about. It's not a plug-in hybrid in the sense that you use the EV mode for commuting or anything like that. The battery, the motors, they are all there to enhance the performance. which is what we like. The chassis can be lowered hydraulically. We'll have a look at that in a minute. These tyres, yeah, Pilot Sport Cup 2Rs, they've been developed specifically for this car. And I don't know if you can see that. You've actually got the silhouette of the AMG 1 on your tyre wall. That's worth the entry price alone. 275 units, all sold out, of course, and 2.4 million quid each. Right, that's enough for me. I've got over here Marco Lockmar, who is the project lead on the AMG 1. This is the man that knows everything about this car. Marco, thanks for having us. Did I get it right? Is there anything big I missed there?
Only a small mistake. It was not a dry weight, this 1,695. It's with all fluids included, but without driver.
Even better. Yeah. That's impressive. A lot of that is to do with the carbon tub and the carbon construction of the car, of course. Now, we're going to get into the details. There's so many on this car, so we'll just take me through everything. We're going to have a real nerd out on the AMG 1. But I wanted to start by taking you right back to the beginning of the project. This idea of putting a Formula One engine in a road car. Now, if you had known how hard it was going to be to get to this point, do you think you would have gone through with it?
Talking about history, so it's very difficult to say what's really the base and what's all that stuff around. So yes, I would do it once more. Yeah, it was crazy, this project. It brought us to our limits, but finally it's done.
Yeah, you're a man that likes a challenge, clearly. So what were the big things? Obviously, we've had a global pandemic. That doesn't help with suppliers and everything. But let's focus on mechanically. What were the big things the big challenges you faced along the way? I imagine it's getting an F1 engine to behave like a road car, starting on a button, idling,
exactly.
that kind of stuff.
So normally, let's imagine Lewis Hamilton would like to go on the racetrack with a Formula One car.
Yeah.
The whole race crew has to come to the vehicle and prepare everything, preheat, whatever, notebooks, race engineers, and this whole intelligence, so this whole race crew are implemented here in the vehicle. So with sensors, special software, control units, so later on the customer is really able sit inside, press the start-stop button, and the power unit will operate.
And was it that idle? Because F1 cars idle at what, 4,000 or 5,000 RPM, but this idles at what, 1,500? You tell me.
1,250.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So this was one of our challenges to exactly reach this idle speed of 1,250. Beside that, it was very, very challenging to reach the emissions target of this vehicle. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, now it won't have escaped your attention that a couple of other companies are preparing hypercars at the moment. They're going down very different routes. You've got Aston Martin doing a Valkyrie, you've got Gordon Murray producing a T50. Both of those are V12 engine cars. So what does the AMG 1 give to the customer? Let's focus on driving experience that perhaps the other options out there don't.
So driving experience, I think it's purely about this F1 power unit. F1 power unit, street legal, so it's nothing like this. And we have many, many things implemented for our customers, like active aerodynamic, different driving programs, energy management the customer can choose on the steering wheel, like in Formula One. So many, many things, maybe which is really unique to this vehicle.
Yeah, it's highly complicated. Do you need a degree to learn how to drive it and all the modes and figure it all out?
It's pretty interesting. So yes, it's complicated. It's like a Formula One. So many, many things the customer can choose, but there will be an app for the customer. So we generated an app, so a kind of race engineer app, and all of our customers can look, okay, if I would like to go on a race or on a qualifying lap, I have to do exactly this, and then the vehicle is behaving like I would like to have it.
Fantastic. It's like an ongoing project, owning one of these. You get to learn it and peel back layers and improve your driving as well. Now, speaking of good driving, Lewis Hamilton, how involved has he been in the development process of this car?
So the whole development phase was created like this. So the AMG team and also the HPP team, so our Formula One colleagues, did all these base setups and all these kind of things. And Lewis was the kind of guy who told us, okay, here a bit more or there a bit more. And this was how the collaboration works, yeah.
The final polish from Lewis Hamilton,
essentially. Yes, let's say it like this, yeah.
That's great. Okay, so, right, we're ignoring the car that's sitting next to us. That's the whole reason we're here. Let's just walk from front to back. Just give me as much detail as you can. Let's focus on the active aerodynamics, because that's the really exciting stuff that we can see and feel and touch. And actually, maybe this is the moment that you hit the button inside and we make all the we make the spoiler come up, we make the flaps in the front arch come up, and the ride height will lower down as well.
Yes, as well.
Yeah.
So now you can see the vehicle in highway mode. So this is the street legal mode where the customers can operate the vehicle on the public road. And now we are going to the track mode if the customer would like to go to the racetrack.
One hell of a party piece for impressing your friends. Right.
So what happened here? 37 millimeters lower at the front, 30 millimeters lower at the rear, the whole suspension system. Then these aero elements were deployed. So it's a really funny thing here. A lot of investigations in the wind tunnel took place. So you always have the problem normally if you don't have these aero elements and you're driving fast. The air is inside of the wheelhouse and you are losing downforce at the front. So what exactly happens here is we open these aero elements and the air can come outside here. And in addition to that, maybe you recognize this special aero element here, the carbon element on our magnesium wheel. This is designed like this, that we can also evacuate the air in this direction.
It looks fantastic. So these are the optional magnesium wheels. It's forged aluminium as standard. Yeah. Fantastic. Just round the front, a little word on the badge. So that's painted in, right?
Yeah, that's really painted in. So it's very complicated. So exactly like the Formula One star, handmade for every of our 275 customers. And there are 16 process steps needed to paint the star on the front end.
It's a nice job. And the idea behind that, a little bit of aero saving and a little bit of weight saving, but really it's the F1 link, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, let's make our way down the car a little bit. What's next? Just a word on maybe the Ram intake on the roof. Yeah,
so it's also like in Formula One. So the special thing here, we have to go a little bit back to the front end. So the whole aerodynamic concept of this vehicle is working like this. The air is going inside here, and then we divide the stream into dedicated directions. So first of all, this stream here going directly to the air intake of the Formula One combustion engine. And let's have a look here. This airstream is going here. One meeting the rear wing again, and one it's here for the air intake of additional cooling elements, gearbox and engine oil coolers. Same on the other side.
Yeah, so you're not just sticking these vents and intakes somewhere around here and hoping for the best. You're channeling the air specifically where you want it to go.
So many hours in the wind tunnel.
And in terms of sound, is this car, is it dominated by the intake noise? Because you've got this intake right above your head as you're driving. Is that rather than the exhaust?
So it's depending on the driving situation. So on racetrack operation, for sure, it's a kind of intake noise. But normal public road, it's for sure more exhaust noise. Yes.
And the idea behind this fin, beside it being another F1 nod, does it add stability and?
Yes, it adds stability, especially cornering. So this is an aero element for sure. It's also a design element, but the real purpose is aero.
Okay, right. The rear wing.
Yeah.
Yes. So tell us about this, different moving elements within it.
Yes, so in track mode here, for the racetrack operation, this wing is always deployed. And you have a DRS functionality here inside. So on the steering wheel, we can look at that later on. The DRS functionality, you press the button and this wing flap will be stowed.
Yep, so that goes
exactly.
back.
And in front, the aero elements will be stowed as well. And then after you are braking, then the aero elements will be deployed.
Back. But you shed, what, 20% downforce when you hit the DRS, something like that?
Something like that, but I don't have the number on top of my head.
I remember reading 20% somewhere. We'll check it, but that's great fun. So you're there on your track day, you come onto the straight, you hit your DRS button. there has to be some theatre in a car like this. There has to be some fun. You know, people that are going to buy it and own it and drive it, they're living out their Formula One fantasies, really.
Yes,
so
for
something
sure.
like that is a great toy to play with and to learn how to use it properly. Love it. Absolutely love it. Should we take a look inside?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Would you like to take a seat?
Yes, I'd love to take a seat. Wow.
No. So now you are in the carbon monocoque.
Yes.
And you already said it. You recognized it. It's a fixed seat position. So the driver or our customers is always sitting in the same position. And what you can then do is adjust the whole vehicle with the steering wheel. So this is working electrically here.
Just like any other Mercedes. I mean, this is far from... Look at that. A Formula One car with an electrically adjustable steering column. It's genius. I love it. And the pedals as well.
Yes.
This is actually pretty good for me. But,
you can also adjust the pedal box. Yes. So between your legs there's a red part. You can pull it. Then the pedal box. Yeah, exactly. And you need a bit of a force to push them back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Now it fits.
Yeah, fits great. Can you adjust the back seat?
Yes, you can
seat
adjust
back?
the back
There's a
seat
bit
as
of
well
angle on that.
in two different positions. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is genuinely the first time that I've sat in this. This is all just information that's streaming through me. The seating position is really interesting. There's definitely a race car feel about it. Your legs are quite high, your bum's very low, but it's not so extreme that you're lying down here and you won't be able to see what's in front of you at the lights. So there's
definitely. So we also drove the vehicle many kilometers for customer readiness purposes on public road. So all over the world, Abu Dhabi to Dubai, in Germany, in Spain, in Portugal. So many kilometers, and you can sit in this car. So that's really no problem.
So how important was the consideration that this car, it's got a Mercedes badge on the nose. And Mercedes are known, yes, AMGs are of course high performance, they're cars for the track, but Mercedes are also luxurious and comfortable and easy to use. And how hard was it finding that balance?
So maybe the steering wheel is one of this example where you can see this balance. So first of all, in the project, the idea was that the customer can use the Formula One technique by its own, and we would like to have a situation where the customer can interact with the vehicle like with a normal Mercedes AMG. So maybe you recognized this button here. You can manage your driving programs with this button. And then here it's very special. So here you can adjust AMG dynamics, your suspension setup, and all these kind of things. Also these elements here, you maybe know from other Mercedes AMG projects.
These are Mercedes.
But
in fact, they're the mechanical ones with mechanical switches as opposed to the swipe buttons.
This is intended because if you are on the racetrack, it's very difficult to slide on some buttons. So it's better to have these switches.
We approve.
What we did here, there are different functions behind these switches. So see here, recuperation, you can adjust it. And special for this vehicle, pit lane limiter. So we implemented a real pit lane limiter.
DRS on, DRS off, pit lane limiter on, recuperation up. Yes, I can see it now.
Yeah.
You must have had so much fun adding in all these elements.
Yeah.
I can imagine the big sort of wish list at the beginning of the project saying, we gotta have DRS, we gotta have all these F1 elements integrated into the car. Let's just talk a little bit about the driving modes. So there's obviously an EV only mode. As I said in the intro, it's not really about driving this car on EV only, but it's sociable if you want to leave your house early in the morning and you don't wake up the neighbours, that kind of element. And then the next mode up is race safe. So that is a kind of a more gentle integration of the hybrid
so
system.
race safe is a gentle integration, as you said it. So the system is deciding whether it's better to drive electrically or with a combustion engine, something in between.
Cool. And then we go to race, and then it's race plus. So now we're getting quite serious. Active aero.
Yes. So race plus is now track mode. So in general, we are dividing into two main modes, highway mode and track mode. Highway mode, 4 different driving programs. You mentioned it. It's electric, it's race safe, it's race, and it's individual to configure it like you would like to have it. And then in track mode, it's race plus and Strat 2. Strat 2, exactly like in Formula One, if Lewis Hamilton would like to go on the qualifying lap, so one lap, all energy out, fastest lap time, he will go to Strat 2.
Yeah, so no holds barred,
Yes.
maximum power for all the motors, go, go, go.
Yes.
Wow. Strat 2 probably not for the road then?
No, Strat 2 not for the road. So exactly like this, highway mode is for operating on public road,
Yeah.
and track mode is only for the racetrack. Yeah.
And the other things I'm noticing in here is, you know, it's like we said, it's a Mercedes. Look, you've got storage down here. You've probably got USB ports
Yes,
somewhere.
USB is also there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You've got electric windows, you've got air conditioning, you've got all these things that make a car like this usable.
Yeah, let's take a look in the display here in the head unit.
Okay.
So there's also a balance between racetrack. So as you can see here, all these kind of things, you can see the temperature of your power unit, you can see RPMs of your power unit, so it's a touch screen, you can also touch here.
Okay.
Energy flow, and so on and so, aerodynamics. But normal interaction is also possible. We have a navigation system, we have parking sensors, climate system, and all that stuff.
Oh wow! So we did a video with this car 3 years ago now, and it was a world away from how finished it is. I honestly didn't expect we were going to see the full finished production car here today, and it's just so exciting that you've seen this project through. And as we said, with a brief like that, put an F1 powertrain in a road car, it's just sensational that you've actually made it stick. All right, John, this is my training run, okay? Essentially, what I've done here is willingly strap myself to a rocket, haven't I? I'm about to become the first person outside the company to drive the 300 mile an hour plus Hennessey Venom F5. And I'll let you know how I feel about that once I've stopped filling my pants. Just listen to that engine behind us. It's not really an engine at all. It sounds like some sort of pissed off T-Rex. Genuinely, the name of that engine, by the way, is Fury. And like Tyson, it's a bit of a puncher. 6.6 litre twin turbo V8, 1,792 brake horsepower. And it's light, this car, because basically everything's made out of carbon tub, carbon panels. So it weighs 1,360 kilograms dry, which is only, what, 30 kilograms more than a Ferrari F8 Tributo, and yet it has 1,000 horsepower more. Right, time to unleash Fury. What do you reckon? Sport mode, F5 mode? F5, I reckon. In for a penny, in for a pound. Here we go. Whoa! And now we're lit! Whoa! Oh! Okay, I can confirm that the brakes work, the ABS is functional, and the end of that runway appeared a little bit sooner than I thought it was going to be. Hit 150 though. Can you see how much I'm sweating? That's not the heat, we've got aircon running in here, that's just pure stress and adrenaline because I was nervous. I was nervous before that run. I thought, do you know what's going to happen? I'm going to stomp on the throttle and it's going to fishtail all over the place and we're going to end up in the barrier because how can a set of rear tyres possibly contain that much horsepower. But it was fine. I'm not going to say it was easy. It's an absolute animal. You do feel like you're containing some otherworldly forces. But look, it stayed straight and true. The traction control did its job. We hooked up, a little bit of wheel spinning first, and off we went. Flipping hell. Flipping hell. When that takes off, when you get your maximum torque around 5,500 RPM, nah, I haven't felt anything like that. Maybe in terms of accelerative force, the Pininfarina Battista, but it didn't feel the same. Here, you've got all the sound and the heat and the vibration coming through the chassis back at you. And it's all that stuff that gives you the cues to tense your neck and tense your stomach and get ready for what's coming next. But I still wasn't ready. Can we do it again, please? In case you didn't catch all that, here's a little recap on what we're wrestling with here. The Venom F5 is John Hennessey's baby, a love letter to excess horsepower which the Texan tuner has spent 30 years bringing to the masses in various trucks and muscle cars. But this is something different, something entirely bespoke, the most extreme combustion engine supercar he, or anyone else for that matter, could possibly imagine. And it's finished, it's real. All 24 cars are sold out for £1.9 million each, and this is an actual customer's car. The name comes from the Fujita tornado scale, with F5 being the gnarliest, with wind speeds up to 318 miles an hour, which is apt because in theory, given the output of the engine and the gear ratios, this thing could do 340 miles an hour. Now, the true top speed will actually be a little bit lower than that, but you get the idea. In fact, they've already done 270 miles an hour in testing at the shuttle landing facility at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, which incidentally is pretty much exactly the same record-breaking top speed that the Venom GT did back in 2014. But from this thing, there's plenty more to come. That monstrous 1,792 brake horsepower then is produced at 8,000 RPM. There's an 8,500 RPM red line, by the way, and that 1,192 pounds-feet of torque arrives at 5,000 RPM. Hello wheel spin. The engine is based on GM's LS pushrod V8, but completely rebuilt with drag racing spec internals and dustbin lid turbos. The gearbox is a 7-speed single-clutch semi-auto, and the performance claims are bonkers. 0 to 62 in 2.6 seconds, 0 to 124 miles an hour in 4.7, and 0 to 250 miles an hour in 15.5 seconds, which is almost twice as fast as a much heavier Bugatti Chiron. And what's obvious when you're standing here is just how simple and stripped back this car is. For example, you've got carbon ceramic Brembo brakes with an excellent ABS system. As I tested out earlier, you've got fixed rate dampers because they're simpler and lighter. You've got off-the-shelf Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 tyres, no bespoke mega money rubber here, and you've got forged aluminium wheels. And then you've got this relatively simple and slippery body shape because when you're doing big speeds, you don't really want downforce. You just don't want lift. Now, Hennessey has confirmed that they are going to do a Targa-topped cabriolet version that'll get a clear engine cover so you can put your pride and joy on display. They're also going to do a more hardcore track-focused version a little bit down the line, but honestly, I think this is the one you want. John's vision in its purest form. Now, being a proud Texan and larger than life, John has a tendency to make bold claims, and none more so than this, and I quote, "We didn't want a one-hit top-speed wonder. We wanted a car with proper amounts of balance and downforce at 300 miles an hour, but one that could still be driven on a B road in the UK." Woohoo! Now, unfortunately, we don't have a British B road to play on today, but they do have roads in Texas too, and I just love the fact that something this raw and this extreme is actually legal on the road. There's barely any sound deadening in here, so you can hear every clunk from the gearbox, every stone rattling around in the wheel arch. You can hear the engine behind you, of course. The engine absolutely dominates proceedings. So if you're trying to sleep within a 15-mile radius of us today, sorry! So, it's clearly drivable, but the question is the F5 Venom actually fun on the public road in the same way as, say, a McLaren 720S? Well, in terms of aggression, it makes a 720S look like a cosy coupe. But let's answer that question in stages, and I'll start with the interior here because it's pretty simple really. You've got these lovely seats, they're really thin and skeletal, so you sit nice and low in the chassis, but they're well padded with leather, so they hold you in place and they're perfectly comfortable. And then in front of me, I've got this yoke steering wheel. We'll talk more about that in a minute. We've got our windscreen wiper controls, our headlight controls. Behind that, we've got these lovely machined paddles here. We've got the toggle for our modes, by the way, and that changes the screen in front of us. That shows our vital statistics, our speed, our revs. You can watch the fuel gauge going down in real time. In the middle of the dash, another big screen. That's for hooking up your phone, so you can have CarPlay or Android Auto. A couple of air vents down here, a few more switches, and that's about it. There's not really much to it, but what there is really nicely done. There's loads of carbon fibre, there's loads of leather. That old myth that Americans don't know how to screw together a car, it ain't true in here. Okay, so the gearbox. Now, we were warned before we came to drive this car, this particular chassis is still in development. There's still a few things that need to be finessed with it, and the gearbox is one of them. First of all, it's a semi-auto, an automated manual, so there is a bit of a lag when you hit your upshift for the next gear to engage, a bit like Lamborghini Aventador. But when you're up and running at full speed and doing full bore upshifts, it's absolutely fine. It's brutal. It suits the character of the car. Where it gets a little bit dodgy is at lower speeds. So when you're maneuvering around car parks and you want to shift from first to second, it can feel a little bit clunky. But look, let me put it this way. There's work to be done there. They will smooth it out. It will get better. This car will become more and more usable at normal road speeds. But for now, it works. This gearbox is an enabler. It lets me experience the full fury of this car, and right now, it's doing its job. The steering is actually fantastic. The fundamentals are all there, aren't they? This car is light, it's low to the ground, the engine is behind me, it tucks into corners really nicely. In terms of the yoke steering wheel, well, the jury's still out a bit. It's perfect actually when you're driving in a straight line, on a drag strip, on 90% of the roads in America. But when you get a corner that requires more than half a turn a lock, it just gets a bit awkward. You're not sure whether to be pulling this bit or pushing down on this bit. Having said that, it looks cool, and I'm getting fighter jet vibes from it, and I get a really good view of that instrument cluster in front of me and the road ahead. In terms of ride comfort, well, the suspension is probably more at the extreme end of the spectrum. Think more 765 LT than 720S, but honestly, I thought it was going to be a lot worse. Which brings me neatly to my conclusion. How often could you realistically use a car like this on the public road? Daily, weekly, monthly, annually? Well, you're certainly not going to be doing the commute in it, that's for sure. But honestly, it's more usable than I thought it was going to be. It's the kind of car that you pull out at the weekends and scare your kids in, scare your friends in. Maybe you go to a car meet and meet some like-minded people. But honestly, in terms of sense of occasion and drama and sense of humour even, right now, for me, this is unparalleled. I absolutely love it. But just to be sure, we headed into town to do, you know, Texan things. Smile and wave, buy a burger, attempt to park. Conclusion from that lot, this thing isn't subtle. But hey, we already knew that. Can you hear me? Ah, it's a bit noisy in here. Could I get a double meat Whataburger? The meal, please, with a Coke. $29.52, I'm coming round. Thank you. That's good. That's the drinks. Do not spill on the seats. All right. Do I need to pay you some money? All right. Thank you so much. All of that. What was that? $29. Right, I'm in the way. That's embarrassing. Installed an automatic at the drive-through. Yeah. Come to that one down. Oh, I tell you what, manhandling that thing around town is one way to work up an appetite. It's good. The question is, because you want to know about the car, not my dinner, is has John Hennessey pulled off the impossible? Has he taken a project that had all the hallmarks of being pure vaporware, something that would never see the light of day, but actually bringing it to fruition and making it a cohesive car, one that's brutally fast in a straight line, but also fun to drive? Do you know what? I think he has, you know. I'm sure someone, perhaps even John himself, is going to shut down a highway and hit the triple ton in this thing. It's easily capable of it, but honestly, that's not what I care about. What is the fact that this car has character. It's an event. It's a blood-curdling, eye-rattling earthquake of a car that sums up America and its love affair with the V8 and horsepower so well. Electric cars are taking over everything. Even John's cooking up a six-wheel, 2,000 horsepower EV Hyper GT. Even John Hennessey. But this is the stuff that we'll look back on and long for. But look, this story is far from over. We've got to get this car on track. We've got to hit some big speeds in it. But based on this first contact, I'm telling you, it's an incredible achievement from such a small company. I'll tell you what it is, this car. It's a towering monument to combustion. And stuff like this is going to be worshipped long after the last drop of petrol's dried up. I'll tell you what, road's pretty quiet. One more time, just because we can, eh?
This is the Rimac Nevera. 1,914 horsepower, 4 electric motors and 4 gearboxes. 1,741 pounds-feet of torque.
It does 0 to 62 miles an hour in under 2 seconds. It runs a quarter mile in 8.5 and it's got a top speed of 258 miles an hour. It's also got a range on a full charge of 350 miles, in case you're wondering, although not at 258. It's got some of the most advanced driver assistance systems in the world, some of which will allow you to do very naughty things. And we're here above the Arctic Circle, where grip is at a premium. Nearly 2,000 horsepower on ice with no studs. Oh yes. One thing I do have to clear up before we go any further. It's exactly how you say the name properly. Marta.
Rimac.
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 Rimac. And also, how do we say the CEO and founder's name in the correct way? Marta.
Marta Rimac.
Mate Rimac.
Marta Rimac.
Marta Rimac.
Marta Rimac.
Marta Rimac. I'm glad we got that sorted. On with the show.
Rimac is essentially a younger, better looking and less prone to weird social media posts to Elon Musk. He's the guy who started Rimac, developed it into an industry powerhouse that provides electric know-how and advanced driver assistance systems to big manufacturers. Porsche and Hyundai are both serious investors in Rimac, and he just took over Bugatti.
Yeah, he did that. He's 34 and blatantly a bit of an overachiever.
The Nevera is basically a showcase for all the technological know-how that Rimac has to offer. It's named after a particularly angry storm in Croatia where Rimac is based, and it's got some quite exceptional toys, which I'm going to attempt to explain while doing this.
This is science! This is science. Hello, science. Still sciencing. Still having science. Now the Nevera has 4 motors, 1 for each wheel, and 4 gearboxes. 1 out by each front wheel, and then it's got a pair of gearboxes in a single housing just in the middle of the rear axle. Now it needs those 4 gearboxes so that it can maintain both a really high top speed and violent acceleration, of which the Nevera has quite a lot of both. To put that into some sort of context, the front motors have roughly 300 brake horsepower each, and the rears have got 650, also each. So this car basically has a Bentley Continental GT speed per rear wheel and a pair of Audi S3s up front. Which means that if you switch all the systems off and bring it to a stop, switch off the traction control and just plant the throttle, you get God, 180 kph, 200 kph wheel speed. Okay, so it's not that effective, but it is spectacular. But if you switch all of the systems on, the Nevera has a thing called Rimac All-Wheel Torque Vectoring, or RAWTV, which isn't a rude TV channel. It's just a series of sensors that monitor each wheel up to 100 times a second and basically do all the torque vectoring. So it can manage pretty much anything. So now we've got all the systems on, it's exactly the same place, the same surface, and I'm going to launch it in the same mode. Okay, so here we go. 3, 2, 1. Okay, we're getting up, but it's not wheel spinning. Wow. Okay, so it's a lot more effective, but a little bit less spectacular. And because it's infinitely configurable, you can actually have the car set to 100% rear wheel drive or 100% front wheel drive. Though I can't think of a reason why you'd want to do that. Switch it into the right mode though, and it will let you act like a drifting hero without actually needing to be one. I mean, oh, drifter! But it doesn't stop there. Electric vehicles love a bit of brake regen, right? That's when it basically, during deceleration, the electric motor spins the opposite way and claws back some of that energy to recharge the battery. Well, the Nevera is right up there with the best of them, even with this kind of technology. If I put brake regen on high, now if I accelerate and get to say 70 miles an hour, well, this is on snow, don't forget, and watch, I lift. Because the electric motor is seamless and not geared, it's a proper one pedal car. It brings the car completely to a stop and it's completely smooth. Now if I switch that off again and do exactly the same thing, but with the normal brakes, so we're going to go up to 60 odd miles an hour, watch this, hit the brakes. Can you hear it? So the ABS system is actually very smooth and very safe, but it's grabbing the brake and letting it go when it slips. It's grabbing, letting go. So the brake regen is actually a smoother, more consistent stopping force than the brakes themselves. That is clever. The Nevera's also got 13 cameras, 6 radar and 12 ultrasonic sensors. This car could basically drive itself if such things were legal. But it doesn't mean to say that that sort of stuff doesn't have other uses. Basically, the Nevera can go to any racetrack in the world and it's got a thing called driver coach, and that will teach you via the head-up display where to brake, where to accelerate and where to turn in. It will teach you to be a better driver like a video game. And that's clever. It's also got what I've termed hyperactive aero, which is very much like active aero, except a lot more of it.
The splitters front and back, the front air dam and this rear spoiler all move to make the slipperiest or downforciest, yes that is now a word, car possible. And yes, it also acts as an air brake when you really want to stop, although it doesn't work when you're going sideways. Now the 120 kWh battery sits in a kind of spine down the middle of the car with 2 blobs at either end. Weight distribution is nigh on perfect, but more than that, the Nevera seems to disguise its weight really well. It feels much lighter than it really is. It feels agile. And a car with this much horsepower and weight really shouldn't.
Is it thrilling? Absolutely it is. Is it the same as an internally combusted hypercar or supercar? No. The noise isn't there, it's different, there is noise, but it's not the same as having an engine revving. And the acceleration is very insistent and very instant. So, I mean, my neck feels like I've been bench pressing with it. Do you know what? This car just feels like a different flavour. There's more nuance in the traction than I thought there'd be. The modes are very different in feeling. They give it a completely different character. It's not a digital representation of speed. It's there, and this car feels real. Naturally, it feels like a good sports car. But the most impressive thing about it is it doesn't feel fake. This, I don't think, is competition for your traditional supercar or hypercar. It's a completely different thing. You shouldn't be judging it on the same standards. This is a new breed.
But what about that practical stuff? Well, this being Rimac, it'll charge as fast as anything you can find for it. At 500 kilowatts DC, it'll do 0 to 80% in under 20 minutes for a 120 kilowatt hour battery. But quite where you'll find a public charger that big, I'm not actually sure. There's also space for stuff and it's comfortable. And driving it around normally, even on these Swedish icy and snowy roads, it's actually just a bit of a pussycat.
But you know what? This is one of the world's most powerful production cars on snow with very little to hit. So that.